Thanks. I'm Abe Newton, here today to talk about Azure tools for big data and analytics. I've worked in the Oklahoma City area. I grew up here and I've worked here off and on for the last 15, 20 years in all sorts of data related facets. A lot of my work has been around T-SQL, SQL Server, things like that. Started as kind of like a data analyst kind of person, kind of really cut my teeth on writing queries, things like that, kind of grew from there. I've written a lot of C# code and things like that over the years. Recently, I started working for Microsoft last summer, so I'm still a noob there. Haven't been there very long, still learning everything. So there's a lot to learn in the first year. You got to get a lot of onboarding stuff. So I'm still pretty new to the Azure stuff. I had a little exposure to it before that. Last few years, before this, I've been working on doing some BI data warehousing in the oil and gas industry. Worked on a Spotfire installation at Sandridge Energy, so managed that installation. So I got to know all about Spotfire. I don't know, it's kind of like Tableau. I don't know, I'm not a Tableau expert, but Tableau, Spotfire, Power BI, all kind of in the same area there. But I got really good at Spotfire and managed the data behind that. So a lot of that kind of transferred over to the Power BI, things like that. So Azure is a platform. There's a whole lot to that. I mean, you can get down to the, building infrastructure as a service, platform as a service, software as a service. We're going to kind of, today, the thing we're going to focus on today, a lot of people, when they think of Azure, they're thinking of, okay, you go deploy a bunch of VMs in the cloud or storage in the cloud, things like that. We're going to focus today is kind of more on the data and analytics side. So big data analytics. So we might get into storage, things like that a little bit, but not so much provisioning VMs and things like that. So I talked to people, and I actually found that I didn't know 90% of what was out there, so I really started working and digging in. There's a lot of cool stuff. We're going to go over some of the things today. Give you kind of an overview of some of the topics we're going to kind of hit on. Some of them we'll hit on more than others, just depending, I'll say I'm going to be really good in some areas. I'm going to be not so pretty green in some other areas. So starting here, we're going to kind of bounce around a little bit. I try to, when I was putting this presentation together, I kind of look at it and I was like, yeah, how are we going to, what's the path? Where's the start? Where's the end? There's not really, it's really kind of, if you build an application, there's a whole bunch of endpoints, a whole bunch of beginning points. They all kind of mix together, wrap together on themselves. So you kind of, I was like, we'll just kind of flow and see where it goes. One thing let me go down here. Oops. So we'll start here with operationalizing end-to-end cloud analytics solutions. And I want to start there because that kind of gives us the, going to kind of shape the Azure platform, what I'm talking about here today. So we'll kind of look at the Azure portal, the Azure Datafactory, data management gateway, PowerShell, and .NET. These are things that you can use to actually kind of basically manage your Azure environment for your users. So if maybe you're not so much a BI person or something like that, but you're bringing this in, you may have somebody that's just kind of focused on building, kind of like your Windows infrastructure guy today, your server infrastructure guy today. He's in there. He can go in there and deploy solutions for your users. So if you have a team of data scientists, analysts, things like that, he can go in there, use a GUI-based platform to allow access, grant access, create services on demand as they need it, scale them as they needed. And then you can also do, one of the things cool about that, you can also do it through like PowerShell, things like that. So anything in there you can script, deploy, solutions can be automated through PowerShell. Let's see. So we'll kind of, I'm gonna start here and kind of dink around, kind of take you guys through, kind of show some points of things out here. So this is the Microsoft Azure portal. So if you come in here, this is the first page you see once you log in. Anybody can go get one. You can get, it's a pay-as-you-go service. If you sign up for free, or sign up, it'll give you like $150 to dink around with. Go use that. If you have a Visual Studio account, I think you get like $150 a month or something. I would use it. I talk to people all the time, and they haven't even, touched the thing, or I'm like, wow, you got this cool deal. You can spin up a VM, spin up a service, kind of play around with it. You've got a whole slew of things in here. They're pretty cool. You can start messing with. Things over here on the left, I mean, it's basically you've got all your different services you can create. You can create VMs. You can create, so some of them, you can create a VM, you can go install whatever you want on it. You can create a Windows VM, create a Linux VM. So one of the things Microsoft's doing recently, they're kind of going platform agnostic. They're supporting Linux now, supporting Windows. Interoperability is a big, important thing at Microsoft. So they want to be able to, so what we have here, you want to be able to deploy. So SQL Server is going to go on Linux. They're working towards that. So basically, backend doesn't matter so much anymore. It's just be able to operate and move things between infrastructure over here and be able to port things together. So one thing you do when you come in there, you're not going to have anything in. You can click the plus button, and you can go deploy any solution you want. You can go build your VM, go build your service. You want to right here. Let's see. So I can create a VM, and some of them come. So some are just flat, and you go install the stuff on them. Some of them you install, and it comes pre-installed with SQL Server, analytics tools, things that you might need. So Azure Datafactory. So one of the big problems we run into when I'm working is how do you move? One of the problems we're trying to solve with Azure is being able to have decentralize your data, or have it move it to the cloud, global, so you can have a company that's all over the globe, pull in different, if you're buying a new company, you may need to pull in their data. So you're going to be dealing with data that's all over the place, different sizes of data, different types of data. How do you move that data around? So Azure allows you to scale it on demand. You can also, and then to move it, the Datafactory is a solution that comes with Azure that allows you to push that data around. So I've used a lot of SSIS, so SQL Server Integration Services in my day, and that's kind of on the smaller scale. So think SQL Server, think your installation in-house or SQL Server installation. You already got the data pretty much on premises. Now you need to mix it, match it, usually push. Typically, they're using it to pull basically their online transactional databases, merge those, transform, massage them, push them into a analytical processing database, data warehouse for reporting and analysis, and they'll use SSIS for something like that. So on a large scale, though, now we're dealing with, we got data at this location, we got data at this location. They don't know each other. We don't have, how do we talk to each other? It's different types of data. It could be a different platform. It could be Linux. It could be the data could be in it. It doesn't have to be SQL Server. It could be any kind of SQL Server database. It could be Hadoop, whatever. What this Azure Datafactory allows you to do is pull in from multiple data sources. Pretty much, I mean, they're constantly adding to it every day, but pretty much anything under the sun. Pull them in, ingest it, prepare it, transform, analyze it, and we'll go over some of the tools that we use for transform and analyzing. We have some pretty cool ones there. Publish the stuff. You can publish to SQL Server database. I mean, you can publish it back to your on-prem stuff. You could put it on SQL Server in the cloud. You could put it on, say, like publish it to a web service, publish it to Azure. It depends what it is you're trying to do. But another thing that Azure Datafactory does is it also kind of streamlines those processes. So let's say we have some big application. Let's say maybe we're in the oil and gas industry. We're trying to pull data in real time. Maybe we have some wells out there with sensor data, and we have some, pulling how sensor failures, things like that. We're trying to predict failures on equipment. We could pull data from that. We get sensors coming in. We got some maybe on chemicals in the field, things like that. We got that coming in. We got geology data, things like that coming in. We're trying to pull all those together. This thing will pull it all together, and then maybe we're using that to do some machine learning, things like that. This will kind of manage that entire process. So as we use each of the Azure components, the machine learning components, the deep learning components, the data preparation components. This thing manages it all, and so someone can just stare at that level and understand. So you got all these, they use a thing called pipelines. If this pipeline fails, they can kind of go up the tree, see if there's anything else fail, what happened here, restart jobs, things like that. Kind of manage the whole flow, orchestrate everything across your organization. And I'll go ahead and point out, Azure Data, one thing that impressed me about Azure Data Factory is that you can pull it, it's really easy to pull data from your on-prem. So I always thought, it's gonna be kind of hard. You have to go through the firewall, do those. They've got components in there to, so you can, we'll just call it the power. I'm gonna mess up the name. I'm gonna make some mistakes here today, so say some things that are not 100% right. There's a data connector tool that you go and install, put it in there. That thing will allow you to pull your on-prem data, basically preps it. So somebody can store that on-site at one location. Maybe you have some SQL Server databases there that you want to make available in the cloud into these machine learning solutions. You got some data science got this big idea. It's like, I need all this stuff and I need it put up here so I can use my Azure ML solution to build this big cool data model. Well, I need it from here. So put this, put the little module in there. It'll suck up that data in a secure manner. Keeps other people out. It sends it over HTTPS, so you actually don't even have to make a firewall exception, things like that, because the port's already open, but it packages up in a secure manner, ships it up there. I was playing around with it on my PC, pulling some stuff from SQL, moving it up to Azure Blob Storage. Pretty cool. It was actually a lot easier to use than I thought. I'm like, hey, why haven't I used this earlier? I kind of went over some of this stuff, the pipelines, just wide variety of data sources that you can use with Azure Data Factory. Data Management Gateway was what I was just talking about. That's the word I was looking for. Kind of take a look at a little at documentation here. Yeah, as I put this PowerPoint together, I'm kind of like, I could throw everything in the world in here, but I kind of realized it's like Microsoft's, they've got really good documentation. And as I start putting it together, I'm like, why am I pulling all this down? It's already here, so we can just kind of go here, look at this. They've explained it better. Plus, it's always changing. They do a pretty good job of updating in my opinion, a real good job of updating their information. So come out here, look at some things like on the Data Management Gateway. This diagram here is pretty cool. This kind of shows you, so that dashed line you got in the middle is your corporate firewall. You got the gateway. The gateway actually sits inside the firewall. It doesn't actually have to sit on the same machine as the data itself. It could be on a different machine. You can have multiple of them. So what this does some really cool stuff. It allows you to, not only does it send it in a secure way, it allows you to stream stuff in parallel. So you push the data through it. You don't have to sit there and think about, it does it automatically, pushes it through multiple streams to, and doesn't worry about network lag, things like that. It'll retry and stuff like that. So you're just setting it up. This is the data I want, push it through, and it puts it through in a really highly optimized format. Yeah, so here they're putting some stuff to cloud storage. They're pushing data factories, pulling some stuff in. What was that? See if we got anything else up here. Just kind of briefly, so like I said, a lot of the things you can do with Data Factory, with managing Azure in general, from the management aspect, you can do it through PowerShell, a series of command lists that you can use to quickly script out any of the operations. If you come in, so if I go in here and take you back to my, put this up. If I was going to create a new virtual machine in here or a new data factory, let's say a new data factory. So you create a data factory itself, and it's got a process. It does a whole set of jobs, and then you create another data factory or something else. But I'll fill in all the functionality, get it. Once I get it all configured the way I want it for this data factory, I can hit the script button. And once you have that scripted out, then if we need more of them later on, maybe we need 10,000 more, click, 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 boom. And then within a lot of these, they have a lot of functionality within them. So as they're running little sliders, you can scale out the compute capacity of things if you're running low and all of a sudden something bumped up, you need more power. Okay, so design machine learning solutions. Some of these topics I came here, so these topic headers I got are kind of from the, if you go out and take the exam on designing big data and analytics solutions in Azure, these are kind of some of the main talking points, the four core areas of that exam. So that's kind of how they break it down. Designing machine learning solutions. Some of the things that they have a multitude of ways you can do this stuff. Azure Machine Learning Studio, this is a big one that they're putting out there for building models. Azure Cognitive Services is starting to get big. SQL Server R services, SSAS, and Azure Machine Learning Studio. So that's a whole online cloud-based platform as a service. You log into your Azure account. You can build a model using either R or Python, and you got a little GUI. It looks kind of like SSIS in a way. You grab your modules, put them together, slide them in, and then it lives right there, and you can deploy it via web services, so you can send requests to it through web services and get a response. So, and then that interacts with, say, like Azure Datafactory. Datafactory can take, you do batch or, so you can send an individual record up there, get an individual request response back, or you can send like a batch. It could be a batch that's sitting out on an Azure file storage. So maybe you got a CSV file, a whole ton of records that you want to run some machine learning algorithm on. You can score it. You can send a request to the web service. It'll read that file in and then dump it back out as a file in your Azure Blob storage or somewhere else that you tell it to go to. Let's see. I'll kind of go through I was going to spend a little time on this, kind of show some things here. Yeah, so that's kind of the interface right there. Sign in. So it supports, so machine learning, it supports, currently they support R and Python. I know you can create R components out of the box on that thing. Python, I'm not sure, I was thinking you have to have like a Python server on the back end. Yeah. Oh, natively inside the thing? It's possible. You're probably right, and it wouldn't shock me because I've noticed some of the other things. I'm starting to see Python come on more. So SQL Server in, with 2016, they started supporting R within SQL Server. So they picked up Revolution Analytics, which has their own R server that they put together. And then I noticed I installed SQL Server vNext, like the tech preview version right now, and I noticed it's got some Python support in it, like a Python server of some sort. So I'm assuming they're going to start supporting Python-based stored procedures as well. Let's see. So I'll kind of show you. So this is a pretty fun thing to look at. If you come in, so this is Azure Machine Learning Studio. When you come in, this is your kind of your home screen. From here, you have a couple of places you can go. Machine learning, which you're looking at right now, you have and then you have the gallery. So you can build something from scratch, or you can go out and pull something from the gallery. I can't remember. I think you can purchase some stuff out there as well. So it could be a company putting one out there. The gallery's got a bunch of cool stuff. It's a good way to learn because you can grab a solution that's already built and then you can break it apart. So I've got some. Let's see. Take a look at the gallery real quick. So this is the Cortana. I think they're constantly rebranding stuff. So sometimes I'm like, oh, what's this called? So they're calling it the Cortana Intelligence Galleries, where they're putting all this. And you have a whole slew of things out here. You can search by industry, solutions. Now, all these are not necessarily just Azure ML experiments in here. There's some things they kind of go beyond this. But if we go into experiments, we'll see these Azure ML experiments here. So here you'll see a lot of things like diagnosing schizophrenia. See what that uses there. I deployed this one, this flight delay classification. Let's see, nope, not that one. But here's one on flight delays that you can look at. From here, it'll kind of give you the description, then you can open it in Studio directly or deploy it as an experiment directly there. And then you can start tinkering with it, run it from there. Maybe you want to kind of modify it, use it to something that suits your needs. So on there, you just kind of give it a region. So it deploys to a region. So you're probably going to want to put it somewhere near you, and then you get a workspace. So you can create a workspace. So you can have somebody that, I believe you can have somebody that, like, say, doesn't even work for your company, maybe doesn't even have the login. You can give them access to a workspace. So you can have maybe a contractor or somebody come in and work on something, give them access to a workspace where they're kind of confined within this space. You give them some data sets to work with, some assets and things that'll pull from your data set, your SQL Server, whatever it is, where you got your stuff in the cloud, but you kind of contain them in that area. So like, here's the inputs, here's the outputs, build us a model without risking too much or getting in a place they don't need to be. So yeah, that put that, so yeah, it's pretty easy to deploy from the gallery. I'm gonna take a look real quick at one that I've got out here. Make sure I'm in the right, okay. Make sure I'm in the right region for the right workspace. Yeah, so here's one. Yeah, so this one takes some market data and attempts to, so it's got a list of market data on cities and attempts to use Kmeans clustering to kind of group them together in similar fashions. So the Kmeans is an unsupervised algorithm, meaning there's not going to be any tag, there's not going to be names of the groups, so it's just going to take them and look at all the data and the different variables, the features you have in that data, and then just cluster them together into however many groups you want to do, if you have 4, 5, 6, 100, whatever it is. So here we go. So setting these up is actually pretty, you put it in there, you got your data source, this market data, and it's pretty cool. We can look throughout each step in this process, we can look at the data, explore the data quickly, see what it looks like, process the next step, see what it looks like over there. So each one of these little modules, you right click it, data set, visualize, and you're gonna see a lot of plots and things in here. So these are all based off R plots that you'll see in here. So we've got each column in our data set. So we got the rows. Tells us quickly, we've got 93 rows in this set, 6 columns. We click on a column, quickly get if we come down, we can see a spread of the data. Kind of what values, you can quickly kind of see what's in there. You can compare one column to another one, so it's going to kind of throw it in a scatter plot there. So it's a good way to explore your data quickly. So here they're coming in, they're grabbing the data, and they're going to normalize the data so that they can kind of put it into a method where they can compare it and sort it, group it easier, get kind of a standard range of values. We can run in each one of these steps, we can kind of stop, and we can run it in any step. So here's where we get so here's the K-means clustering. So each one of these is going to have a model. So here's where your R comes in. heavily. So this component was it's one of the standard components that comes with it. It exposes, so with Kmeans clustering, usually what you're doing on that one, and I'm not a data science expert, but you're trying to cluster it in a set of groups. So you got to tell it how many groups do I want to do, and there's a whole science behind how many groups you want to do, and they use some different methodologies, many of which I don't think are real automated, but so that's kind of where your data science coming in. Kind of a lot of this one maybe try to figure out how many, what they call them, centroids, I think it is, to use that you put there. So right here we got 4. A couple other metrics, things you can set in there. Euclidean cosine. I can't remember what that is, but I explored it. Let's see. And then iterations. I think my understanding of iterations, the more you do, the more exact. It was more exact, but it would really slow it down if you put too many. Then you got this train clustering model. So the train clustering model component is just, hey, it takes it's got the clustering component over there, and then you got the data, and it's gonna get that. And then it spits it out here. Here's the result. Let's see results. Here's where it comes in actually visualized, so we can kind of see the 4 different items that we have and how they overlap, what they look like. Then it takes it, so it's basically taking it. So you got your data, you got 93 rows in there, and it's giving each one of these 4 clusters. It's assigned to 1, 2, 3, or 4, and so that when it comes back to your data set that you get, it's going to take those back and give it a resulting value. So somewhere in there, I remember exactly where that puts that. Somewhere in there puts it in there, and it kind of ties it back. So then you take it in there, and then you say, hey, this is in group 1, group 2, group 3, group 4. So if you're doing that on a massive scale, say millions, hundreds of millions, billions of rows, that can be quite effective to take it and quickly say, hey, we like stuff that looks like, you have 10 different markets. We want stuff that looks like market 1. Boom, give me those, and then kind of filter it down from there. And then on that. So you would kind of work in that world until you're ready. You get your model right, kind of like kind of feeling good. Then you get your model going. Then you kind of put it out as a predictive experiment. And here they've deployed it as a web service. So you have in the little light blue area over there on the right, you've got your web service input and your web service output. And it's taking that same model, running it through. I can't remember if that would. You can, like I said, you can support 1 request at a time, something we hit at one time, or you can have like batches that brings in a file, exports a file. So from here, you could build, so you could basically build a whole application. So it's kind of decouples your application. You're kind of seeing me. A lot of times we're gonna go through some of the stuff we're gonna talk about. A lot of the components you'll see in Azure and the machine learning components, things like that. They're really focused on decoupling. Doing one thing really well. So this thing basically creates a data model, and then you can use it for prediction on your results. So as new data is coming in, you can predict it, output it to a web service. The cognitive toolkit, it's becoming, I don't know when this was actually released. I'm hearing more and more about it. The cognitive toolkit is, it's focused more on deep learning. So if you look at, and it's more of a GPU intensive API for deep learning. So I've kind of messed around, I've looked around, like, so if you go look at like NVIDIA processors, like for GPUs, video cards, GPUs are going to be more, they have a whole bunch of processors inside it versus like your CPU's got maybe 4, 6, 8, 32, I don't know, processors. They're really good at doing like logic stuff. The GPU's better, video transformation, things like that. But it's got a whole bunch of like maybe 1,000 processors inside of it, which makes it where so your PC, you kind of have a very a massively parallel processing computer inside your PC a lot of times. So, and they have a language called CUDA that you can take advantage of the GPU on your PC. So what they've done here is Microsoft's kind of worked with them. I think I don't fully understand it. I think it's pretty much on top of CUDA the entire time. But so you can do this as a platform as a service. You can click a VM, it'll create a VM for you with it's basically a cognitive toolkit, and it'll have a GPU on it, which a lot of them, I don't think they're not putting the GPUs in a lot of the machine VMs. You can just get a CPU. So it'll have a GPU in there, NVIDIA, and then they put a layer on top of that CUDA language that basically lets you, it looks like it lets you write R language, Python, and it translates that down to the CUDA code and does some massive parallel processing. So it's very good for very deep learning, neural networks, things like that. I'll show you some of the stuff they got here. Can you what? Probably. I don't know. I always hear on that is that if it's cost effective or not. I'm sure you could. Try that. You work for Microsoft. Yeah. Yeah. When they start seeing me crank up, got like 4 accounts, but kind of watch them. And so when I deployed this one solution last night, and I got it out there, and like, I don't know how much it's going to cost, because you deploy it's one thing when you put a VM out there, and you're like, okay, it's I kind of got an idea of how much it's going to cost. You do a solution, well, it might be putting this, so about 10 different things, 20 different things. I'm like, okay, how do I shut this off? How do I turn this? So you kind of get familiar with that, but it is, so you wake up the next day, it's like, how much did I spend? But yeah, so on this, here they come. So they have a different gallery for this one, pretty much just for deep learning, things like that. Does it? Probably not. I mean, they're going to kind of sell you like a compute hours. What's probably going to happen there is I don't know how this was set up specifically, but you'll pay for a server with a specific amount of service on it, and you're going to run your cool solution, and it's going to maybe it's kind of slow, and you're like, okay, well, it's going to take. I'm only this far through on this with this compute units. I need to scale it up to the next tier, this tier, this tier. Then you're like, okay, so probably be good to kind of prototype it at the smaller scale level, get it going. And you can take this this cognitive toolkits, you can take it outside of Azure. You could go download it on your own PC at home too. So if you got a good GPU, put it there, get it going before you decide to, and then if, hey, you get something cool, go put it in the cloud, put it somewhere, don't even worry about the VM at that point. But yeah, you can put the whole toolkit on your own machine. What's that? Yeah, I mean, well, there's a lot of that. I mean, that's part of it. You also got to think like Azure. So one cool thing about Azure is, regardless of, it goes beyond just BI solution, big data is like, I don't have to worry. I mean, there's always the worst case scenario, and sometimes things go down. Amazon, Microsoft, they always have, there's an out, there is always that worst case scenario that could be an outage, but for the most part, let's say that you got it in one region, that region goes down, you can have failover, you can have it where it's automatically, geo-replicated to another region, so there's no downtime, you don't see anything, you're not worrying about backing things up, all that. I personally, I hate that stuff. I get tired of it. I mean, some people I go, I build my own machine at home and everything, but beyond that, it's like servers. I don't have time to go learn how to configure 50,000 servers or to put a Hadoop cluster together and wire them together. I know people that work in this industry in Oklahoma City. I've talked to data scientists that have under their desk that work for pretty big companies, and they have under their desk, they have like in their office, they have like a 10-node Hadoop cluster that they're managing by themselves to run their experiments on. And it's as soon as like, as recent as like a year ago. And I'm just like, in my head, I'm like, why? Like, you're the guy. It's like, why? I know they're paying you a lot of money. Why are they, why do they have you sitting there building your own Hadoop? And it's like, it should just be click, 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 boom, you've got your, platform as a service Hadoop solution. So on the Hadoop stuff, we'll get to more on that stuff in a little bit, but this is a cool place if you're interested in deep learning. putting that stuff together, the cognitive solution. You could do some cool stuff in there. You know, it's starting to get going because there's a lot of stuff like image recognition, things like that, video recognition. You know, scouring through video, looking for objects. I've seen some solutions that they're building out there, and it's you know, watching a whole feed of video throughout the day. Maybe you're looking for theft, things like that. It's picking up things, tracking. You know, it recognizes objects in there because it's been trained, you know, using machine learning algorithms. But there's a lot of cool stuff that they can do with the GPU based on this cognitive services. Now I'll talk a little bit about SQL Server R services. I'm not an R expert, but I've been messing with SQL Server R services for the last year, kind of want to be integrating that. We used it some at Sandridge inside the Spotfire. There's a lot of people using R at Sandridge, but it was usually, hey, they had an R installation on their own personal computer, and they're writing stuff over there, and then trying to translate it, you know, pull it from Excel, do something with it, spit it out. Okay, what do I do next? If you had pretty much all the modern desktop analytics tools like Spotfire, Power BI, Tableau, as far as I know, all of them have R integration in them. We're doing Spotfire, you know, putting it in there. One of the things I was trying to teach them is like, you know, it seems like a lot of the engineers, analysts, things like that, they don't always know. It's like the engineers, they grow up maybe in college using R or Python or something like that, and they don't quite know how to scale it. It's like you kind of have to show them, it's like, hey, they're not real good at SQL maybe sometimes, but when they get it in R, I've seen them do some crazy, amazing things when they get it in there and kind of get more to a statistic-based language. And if you're not familiar with R, it's kind of more, it is, if you go take a statistics class and then go use R, it's basically modeled around how a statistician would write code. It's really cool, and it's very effective, and it speeds up. It was initially kind of more of a prototyping language. It was used heavily for that, but what's happening, and then so you get it, you prototype something, you get a data scientist, and like, okay, get it going. But it was slow, because it was basically a single-threaded application. It wasn't a way to scale it out. So what they've done recently, and it's not just Microsoft, I've seen it with Spotfire, they're figuring out ways to scale out the R technology. So one way Microsoft does it, they picked up a company called R, and it's like Revolution Analytics that create their own R server. And so they picked up that company, they've been integrating that technology into a lot of their solutions, one of being SQL Server. So if you install SQL Server 2016, there's an option in the drop, you know, when you click on the little check boxes, there's one in there for install SQL R server. It's fun, go out and play with it. So you get two things. So you get a standalone R server, which you can, there's a free version of R out there. It's you know, open source. It's virtually the same thing. You pull it up, you can use it, or you use SQL R version. You can use either one. Either one works with SQL Server. So what SQL Server did, they've integrated with SQL Server so that now you can create the R and store it as a stored procedure inside SQL Server, so you can call it directly. It kind of lives with your data. Whereas before, if you ever used R, it's kind of hard. You kind of had to connect up to the data. It wasn't real hard. It didn't interoperate with SQL Server very well. So now you can create a stored procedure. That allows you to put security around it, things like that, and one of the big things with Revolution R Analytics is it adds some parallel processing components to it, so it's now not just a single-threaded application. It'll scale. So they've scaled it two ways. So they can scale it across your process. They can also scale it on the back end. You can scale it across many servers. So now we have a SQL server here, and that's where you'll see a lot of these things. They're very focused on a lot of these applications, decoupling them and horizontally scaling things. That's one of the ways to get bigger and faster. So with R, what it does, you basically write R code. So you can have somebody that writes R code. You can bring them in, and they can be a very powerful asset to your organization now. Now you have a SQL Server guy. All he has to do is, you get the guy to write the R code. On the SQL Server guy, there's a little wrapper shell function that you put in there. It basically takes the whole thing, stores it as a string, and then saves, I think it's like varchar max or something, var binary, I can't remember exactly, one of those data types, into a SQL Server table. And then they got some, the Revolution Analytics, it's got some SQL Server functions to execute that across the R server. So it takes that stream, pushes it out to the R server, and you can take it in a couple of functions that will partition the data as it's coming in and parallel process that. So now you've got there's some things I've done in there that you can do. If you're familiar with R, there's a whole bunch of libraries out there. There's a whole bunch of community generated content out there. So you could build things really quickly. All these things, Kmeans, clustering, things that you try to do in SQL Server, you're gonna have to build from the scratch, and it's not gonna be effective. SQL Server is not good for doing that kind of data stuff. It's good for grabbing the data, doing set-based algebra on it, joining union sets, filtering sets. Not so good at doing deep learning, things like that, but you can push that off to your R server and scale it out as need be. And if you put that, so right now I think the R server is just they don't have, there's not an R, there's not like so with Azure SQL, you can just click a button, have a SQL database pop up. You don't ever see the OS or anything like that. This one, they still have it. They'll give you a you'd have to install it to put it in the cloud. You could put a Windows, I don't know if it might run on Linux, I assume Linux too now, but Windows Linux VM. So you'd have to provision a cloud-based VM and then install it yourself on there using the SQL Server install, things like that. But you could still scale it that way, have multiple servers out there. I'm sure I wouldn't be surprised that's not coming down the pipe because I keep seeing more and more every day. We now have the SQL Server Stack. They just came out. I think it's still in preview. Is SSAS, so the analysis services as a service. So now you can just click from within that Azure portal and get analysis services service as well. That's pretty cool. Haven't seen reporting services yet. So we have SQL, we have analysis services, integration services. Not quite there. I haven't seen that one, but we do have. So once you get to the cloud, you have the Azure Datafactory, which I think you'll find pretty interesting. Got two. One. Yeah.
Yeah, and maybe everybody knows this, but me, I missed out on this, but that's pretty clever and it's pretty cool. Right down that Microsoft offer as far as internally in their own stack for non-relational data.
Okay, yeah, we'll get that here in just a second. They have pretty much everything. So it's been a while since I've looked heavily at Amazon Web Services, but they're pretty much, I'd say most of what Amazon Web Services has, Microsoft has, and vice versa. They're pretty. So we have the whole Hadoop offering. We have so HD Insights, and we'll come down. Let me go ahead and skip down so we kind of bounce around here. Yeah, so I don't have a whole. This isn't one of my areas of expertise. I have a whole lot of experience working on Hadoop or anything like that. But so HD Insights is Microsoft's implementation, cloud-based implementation of the Hadoop framework. It's based off the.
In-house.
What's that?
That's their in-house.
Yeah, it's based off the Hortonworks implementation, and it's a platform as a service. So you can just so quickly, kind of like the Amazon Web Service stuff, scale it out quickly, whatever you need on demand. One of the things cool. So we kind of talk about like so you got that. So with HD Insights, you get there's different offerings in there: Spark, Hadoop, Storm, all those Apache offerings in there. So the Hadoop's going to be more for your batch processing, massive batch processing, stuff that you're not going to really want to do on a SQL server. Maybe scale too big, or maybe it's non-relational data files, things like that. And then you got Spark is getting kind of big for, so if you want to do some more, it's built off the HDFS file system as well, but it's more for that. It's, I want to say, in memory, and allows for more real-time analytics, real-time queries, or interactive queries is more the thing. So, and you could do some real-time stuff and use a thing called micro batching. Storm's going to be more of your real-time streaming analytics. They have, let me kind of come up and show you. Okay, so for big data real-time processing solutions as opposed to batch processing solutions, they have uh, the Spark, Storm, Kafka. At the in-house ones, they have Azure Stream Analytics and Azure Event Hubs are kind of their platform as a service offerings that they non-open source, I believe, but they're easier to so if you want to build something to stream stuff, so they have Azure Stream Analytics, uses like a SQL based language, so it's easier to use, probably not as powerful as say Spark or Storm for real-time queries, streaming queries, but it's going to be easier to use, set up, might be good for first time setup until you kind of hit those boundaries, those thresholds, and you may want to push it over to Spark Storm combination for streaming. Event Hubs is kind of in comparison to Kafka, and if I remember correctly, I think Kafka was built by the people at LinkedIn, which was acquired by, they kind of put that as an open source, I think under the Apache open source framework thing. So, and it's kind of, so it kind of compares it took me a while to understand, it kind of compares to the Azure Event Hubs. So your Event Hubs, so let's say you have some sensor data out in the field somewhere, maybe some third-party application, but it can shoot some stuff out in like HTTPS or something like that. It can shoot, you can put the Event Hub out there, and what it does is it's great at collecting data in mass quickly. So if you were going to take some sensor data, say off your CPU or something, and shoot it up to the cloud, you know, it's great. You used to be able to put, you know, like a web service out there, shoot it up, and you can collect it up there one at a time. But when you try to scale to thousands of items, shooting sensor data at the same time, now you've got a problem. It's got to, so what the Event Hubs tackles a lot of those problems. So it takes that. You can kind of see right there. So the Event Hubs is in the middle there. So you can pull all you can take your devices, shoots it up there, and then it makes it available to things like Azure Stream Analytics. Stream Analytics is you can go straight to, you can run Stream Analytics queries straight from or access them straight from something like Power BI on the front end. So the Event Hub over on the left, the green, the Event Hubs. So you got your producers, your event sensors out in the field, whatever it is. It could be airplane engines, oil wells, whatever. They send it in. The Event Hub, they send it to an Event Hub, and it parallel processes it. So it partitions it and makes it, that's one of the speed things, partitions the data, makes it available to the consumers. One thing this thing does, and it's important, it decouples the events coming in from the stuff the stuff consuming it. And that's kind of important if you want to kind of build some scalable solutions with unknown sources that you have out in the field. So I see a lot of places like got all these proprietary solutions from back in the day. If you could throw an Event Hub out there, you could throw, I think it's called the Azure Service Bus over on the front end and stream that information. It'll send an HTTPS request or I think Event Hub takes HTTPS or I think it's called AMQP message service as far as pushing messages through it. So based little events, and then it shoots it out in AMQP standard format to your consumer groups, your event receivers. I had a solution, I don't think we're gonna get to see it today, but so one of the solutions I deployed out there was doing yesterday was taking an end-to-end thing for an aircraft carrier company. They're trying to kind of predictive maintenance type stuff, so they got all these sensors, it's generating all these, put the solution out there, and it generates a lot of kind of fake data in real time, like so thousands of events per second, pushes it to this Event Hub. The Event Hub takes it. Next to the Event Hub, you have the Azure Stream Analytics, which you would be over on the right. It's running queries, so that lets you run Windows-based window queries. So give me all that stuff in every 5-second window. Give me the number of events that we had here. Boom, 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 boom. Sends it off to, then they kind of view it in Power BI dashboard. So there's that. You can take it, and then you can scrub. You could say, so you could send half of it to your one direction. You could store it for long-term storage. So, and then you could send half of it and scrub it up against a data model that you have in, say, Azure ML. You get your Azure ML piece, you put it, and then you put some in blob storage, and you want to use that blob storage piece to go back and retrain that data and make your model stronger and stronger over time. So that's where the event hubs. It's the left piece of that kind of allows it decouples the pushing the events out there from the events out in the field. And then the Azure Stream Analytics is that piece on the right that actually it's basically a real-time streaming query solution. There's some things on here as far as how much it scales. Let's see, you can start at one. So you kind of like what you talked about earlier on you buy the compute units. So you get like starts off you have one compute unit. It's just like 1 megabyte per second. If you need more, you can go. I think you like 1,000 times that, which gets up to the 1 gigabyte per second unit up there as far as total. I don't know if it goes. I think that's about as it goes before you have to go to a whole other solution. Are we pushing the time here? Where we at? Because I mean, I could go as I did. So you let me know. So where you want to go? I can go deep on some of this other stuff, or we can keep going. You let me know. Okay. So, well, I mean, that was most of what I wanted to hit on. I will kind of real quickly. I was going to kind of go into storage real quick as well. Just kind of give you a brief overview because the storage is kind of what all this stuff is running on the VMs, everything, all the applications. So you hear Azure storage. I've been dealing a lot with Azure storage lately, blob storage. So you've got blob storage, page storage, you got all the file storage, like what it is. I'm having to deal with a lot lately. I'll go back and forth between so public sector, private sector clients. And you can go out, you can look on the internet. The public sector doesn't have near the offering right now in the Azure space as the private sector, so they lack a lot of the analytics solutions right now. So they'll have some of the stuff like they'll have like the blob storage. They'll have some, like maybe 20% of the solution. So one thing I found is that we kind of got to learn how to work with blob storage. Push the data around using it. So I've been learning a lot on that.
By public sector versus private sector?
Oh, it's just as far as what they offer in the cloud offerings of Azure. So you can go out if you go. I'll pull it up later. But if you go out to you look up Azure offerings by region, they'll have a breakdown of U.S. There's like 2 or 3 U.S. regions, Europe region, China region, Asia. I think they got a DoD one out there. They've got a MAG one, which is Microsoft Azure Government. So it's one that the government has partnered with. Yeah, so there's a different process to get the stuff ready, get it approved, so that they can use them, so they can start purchasing and deploying. So they get there. It takes longer to go through the vetting process. So when you do work with them, you don't always have every tool in your tool belt to work with the data. So right now I'm writing a lot of C# code to go out to blob storage, pull stuff out of stores like JSON files, pull them over here, whereas usually I would use Datafactory or something like that for it. We don't have that option when I go there, so kind of cool. So I'll kind of wrap it up here today. We'll just kind of end there. We can go deeper on there's a lot of these areas I can go a lot deeper on in some future ones. Appreciate it.